It's me and three other people, and we're recording it. Alex, Malcolm, and Dimitri.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing? It's like I'm the only one in.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, 4 or 5.
My back. I didn't want to make it super formal today. Like I have a slide deck that I want to pull up and kind of go over some of the things that kind of the UI design, and then I thought it might be helpful at some point to maybe have Q&A, or like maybe we talk about some of the things that are more applicable directly to you guys on the team, and then even I was going to show a process that I did recently for a company on a design project where a need that they had, and then I'll walk you through like my stages about that in that problem, and then presenting a solution. So we could probably cover all of that in this hour. So the slide will be a deliverable I can give you guys, and then some of the other things as well. I don't know if that sounds good to y'all, but I think we could probably back and forth, and like I said, feel free to interrupt me or ask questions. I don't know. I was kind of stalked LinkedIn, so if you saw me looking at your profile, I was just wanting to make sure like I knew what kind of background everyone has. I know we got like some web developers, some marketing in the room. So I come from like design background. But yeah, I'll just jump into the slide deck real quick, and then we can kind of go from there. And forgive me if I'm just starting at too low of a level. Some of you probably don't know some of these things, but I kind of just wanted to paint a holistic before we went more into the weeds about things. So all right. So slide deck. This is me, in case you didn't already see me. Just some highlights. I'm native Texan right now. I'm in Brooklyn, but I've been making things, visual design, illustrations, things since I was a little kid. Some of those things are photography, illustration, and then I found Photoshop maybe like 1994. So been building things in Photoshop since like the mid 90s. The things that always drives me is just I'm always looking to grow and learn. If you already know, you already know Albert. Albert and I kind of share that. We have some overlap in our skill sets, but we definitely help each and grow throughout the years. I'll talk second. Over 10 years of designing things, different varieties of businesses. I'll go with that. With people, I think that's integral to bring up. When you're designing experiences for people, you have to be very empathetic to what their needs are, so the business needs, and then tying those things together. But hearing about people is very relevant when design. And I love teaching. Actually taught in Austin at a code school for, I guess, in about 2016 to 2017. 2016 2017. So I also like to get my hands dirty and running my own businesses sometimes. This is like a high level interest. When I was a kid, I was going to be an NBA player. So this is about as close as it's going to get me helping you guys with design work on an NBA team. But on the professional experience side of things, I got a graphic design at the Art Institute of Houston. I did some graphic and web design right out the gate. And then that slowly turned into more web marketing related type things. I met Albert back in 2009. We were doing web agency work and project manager, and I was a designer. And then he did more development than I did. Kind of forked in the road since then. For about 3.5 years, freelance design, various things for different companies, different people. And then I went back into corporate world, and that is kind of my first taste of UI UX work. I also incorporated graphic design and traditional marketing. Oftentimes, you guys have probably already found in your field, there's a little bit of that. So you might be a developer, or you might be a designer, or you might be purely a marketer by job. But then you have to kind of know some overlap of the different areas that you work with. I think that's real important when we're working with people on the team to know a little bit about the overlap, and then you can kind of strengthen your existing set. So you can kind of see as I'm going through here, my things I'm doing at the different places over the years have kind of transitioned. And then, so that from Insperity, I went to a company called MediaFire, and then more UI, UX, marketing, some illustration. There it is when I taught UI design. Then it was just purely UX and UI design, and no illustration marketing, so that was just purely focused. And then earlier this year, I joined a startup, and Albert actually came and helped on that for a little bit as well. So cool. But throughout this whole time, I've been a contract designer doing freelance and type of thing. So enough about me, kind of like why we're here today. So that's just a little bit of a picture, a little bit of background. What is UX and UI? I think first, I like to talk about design, because the user experience is the holistic, the aerial view, the complete experience. It's focused on the user's journey to solve this problem. So if we think about like Craigslist, it's not the most beautiful interface, but it doesn't matter because the experience is good and things done. You can find things you want to buy, or you can sell things. The experience is done, even though we can all agree that it's visually not that appealing. So a little bit going deeper into the UX. The UX is an internal experience for the person when they interact with your company's product or services. So when I land on the Grizzlies.com website, it's going inside and how easy it is to do things. So that might be satisfaction. On our end of the people that are doing it, we need to do research. We need to understand what types of content people are going to see. We need to sketch ideas out, get them out there. We need to test, iterate, and always in touch with the person who's going to be using the site. We're going to go high level and then kind of drill down deeper as we go along. So on the user interface side of things, UI design, more on the visuals, and it's focused on how this product, website, or app going to surface looks, visuals, and functionality. So more about colors, icons, fonts, etc. So this, just to reiterate, is more the design and visual side of things, and where things are located, and or experience versus visuals. I like to use the analogy or the metaphor of a car. So if we're thinking about it from a car perspective, UX is the feeling when you drive, when you're steering wheel, like how does it feel when you're taking a corner? What does it feel like when you're pressing that gas down and you're accelerating? Is it effective for mileage, et cetera, safety, all the little things that are about you as a person in the car and how you experience that car. Then the face is more like, what color is it? Does it have certain style rims, sunroof, etc.? Those are just kind of the features that it has. Some of those can overlap into the experience as well, but they're more secondary to, like the leather color isn't necessarily as experiential as like the way it feels, the seat for your body as you're driving. And this is just a good example in the world where people took a lot of time designing about the user. So they made this little fence, and as you can see on this path to the right, everyone was like, I'm just gonna go, like, this is a much easier path for me, just go to the right. it's a real world example that is coming. But in the web world, we can test these things with analytics and questionnaires and real life user testing, where we can kind of make some predictions and then prove them one way or another. I think one of the biggest things that can make successful UI UX designers is uh, just always being willing to be wrong and listening to people to make sure that we're station that they have, um, and not being firm, just kind of being flexible and malleable with our process. So just kind of reinforce some things we've talked about already.
Real quick, I saw something,
Colors,
Ben.
yeah,
I saw something on the screen that you showed when you did the car analogy. I think that was a good
yeah,
analogy to show that also can tie into how user design, user interface can affect, or you like can affect the user experience. Because right there, when you're saying, the feeling you get when you drive, that's the actual user experience. But that could also come from having a sunroof. You know what I mean? So like
for sure.
a
Yeah,
person,
get some breeze on your
especially
hair.
especially if you find out that the person who is your target audience for that user experience is someone who likes to feel the sun or who likes to be outside, then designing a sunroof into the interface could also affect that person's user experience. So
Definitely,
I saw that on there.
definitely. Yeah, they can kind of go back and forth there. And that can be kind of the confusing part. There's maybe not a difference between user experience and user interface design. It's that they're not comparable, but they're mostly overlap. But you can have a lot of nicely designed elements that don't provide a good user experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I like talking about Craigslist, because they've only focused on the experience. Uh, we can make an argument about polishing the design a little bit, but um, work that way for forever. So, um, so yeah, then kind of reinforcing some of those things. Like if we use a certain color for text, background, graphics, whatever, it can evoke a certain emotion. Whereas red could be a signaling warning. Um, McDonald's, for instance, uses red and yellow to evoke hunger. So it just really depends. Like, for instance, with the color palette the Grizzlies use, it's a very calming set of colors. Blue is very common on social media websites like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all use blue. It also evokes trust, professionalism. So these are some things that we can use here. When designing an interface, very important to be consistent. So like if we have a button, let me jump over to the Grizzlies website real quick. Like this, the main button I see right away is the yellow button for tickets. And then on every page, like if I were to go to schedules, the button is yellow. The other buttons that are yellow on the page is like a PDF or a calendar. I know that those are going to do something, so that this yellow button is like an action that I'm about to take. So that's a consistency that we see across y'all's website. But I'll jump back in real quick. We're almost done with this presentation. I want to show you some more actionable visuals, since we're all visual people here. When things are consistent, it gives an intuitive feeling, and when users don't have to do any thinking, they can feel more comfortable, uh, not have to make decisions. They can just use and act on the website. Something that is really nice to have in applications or websites is the ability to customize. I'll get satisfaction when we can upload our own profile photo uh, that's onto a website, or change some colors, or about the image. We see that on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's it just kind of gives me a little bit of ownership over that experience. So I think I'm going to let me just double check here. Just have a few more slides that I put together. So when we're thinking about design, before I even jump in, I think one of the questions, um, however, that you sent over before was like, if we're going to redesign something people already know, um, like an existing web entity, or you want you want to think about all the content and how you're going to organize it. And I would start this in text, kind of presentation, where you're just thinking about what types of content you're going to have, how they relate to another, the hierarchy of those pieces of content, and then how, reveal that content to people and what they're looking for. So there's business goals, there's what users are wanting to see, and what they're coming to the website for, and then some of those are overlap, but you really want to guide people through that experience. And standard pattern that we can use. So a really common one, since we read left to right, is something called the S pattern shape. And we can see here that like this is just the terrible little design, but it reinforces that. We have the logo, and then over here on the right, we have the sign up button. You'll see we start out with the logo, then we go across the page to the sign up button, and then we go down to this image, and we go across to this. When you draw users' eyes across the page, it consciously lets them take in everything that's on the website, and they can get an overall picture of what's there. Give some more examples in a little bit here, but this is just to kind of lay some foundation. Here's some heat maps. If you're not familiar with heat maps, there's great tools like Crazy Egg and some other ones that are out there that install some quick snippets of code on the website, and you can see where people are clicking, and then where people aren't. And you'll see that these patterns also relate to this F pattern here, like where left is more dense, and then it kind of tapers out to the right. And so it's a really common pattern. Then another common pattern, F and Z are right up there with one another. It is this thing. And you can strategically place things across a page in this pattern. So you can kind of see, like, we have the logo, and then it goes across to some menu, and then back down to some text, and then the sign up now button. And that's just a good way of getting users' eyes across the page. You can kind of guide people visually with imagery and colors and hierarchy and placement of objects on your page. So let me jump back over to the Grizzly site right now. You'll see, like, our first thing we see is, like, there we're on the page, we see the logo. I think the most different is color that we see is the ticket still. And I know that this is an assumption, I don't know, but my assumption is the reason why it's on the left side is because the thing people come to the site for the most, and it's where the money's made. So from a business position, we want people to buy tickets. Over on the right side is something a little bit less important. So an F pattern is just not being in caps with major calls to action. And then the next major thing we see is, I mean, we reinforce tickets again. So tickets is our we have 1, 2, and then 3 calls to actions, 4 calls to action above the fold here to buy tickets. And I think that's really, uh, really good. So you can't really miss it. Um, but I wanted to maybe go into, or maybe ask if there's any questions. I know I've just done a lot of rambling, and it's really a high level and not very visually tangible. But I wanted to maybe see if there's anything before I dive into it, like an actual process.
So during non-game days, you see that collapse game info button underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit that. So that's how the page normally looks on non-game days.
I think
Without
I was
that.
exploring it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what the above the fold typically looks like.
Okay.
What is your
So there's
thoughts on
3
that?
calls to action.
Yeah.
And then you have season tickets and then the little tag for the different tickets here. I think it's great right now. I mean, okay, assumption that the main thing you want people to do is come and buy tickets, and then I think everything else is a little bit secondary. Am I correct in that assumption? Okay.
I believe so.
Because I was going to say that mobile experience is different, right? So it's from top to bottom, right?
Sure.
So now we're discussing like desktop experience, right? All these patterns you showed us,
Right.
you know, from left to right, but again, mobile experience is from top to bottom, right? So it's slightly different.
So if we forgive me for having this overlaid, but this is the quickest way I could get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me refresh it. There we go. The ad wasn't responsive, that's why I was doing that. So right away, if I were looking here to come to get tickets, it shows me the most current game that I can do, which is, I guess, tonight. And then if we were being more honest with ourselves, from this taller.
Oh, Terminix still on mobile.
So I would almost be a little bit more in my face the ticket buying now experience. Like on the desktop, we have that yellow button, which yellow is a little bit more and is a contrast color, a complementary color with the blues that you have, and that would be a little bit or consistent. We were talking about consistency earlier, and I'm gonna put this kind of side by side. Um, we have like the red button for find tickets, and then the main button for tickets as a whole. But it's yellow. I would almost make all of the ticket buttons one color. No matter what I was doing, yellow would be the color just for buying tickets or whichever color you wanted it to be. And then all secondary calls to action that aren't finding tickets or buying tickets, maybe making them a separate color that is a little bit more consistent amongst those. So like having yeah, that would be my main suggestion, and then making that more obvious on mobile. To know that the first thing I get to that I can experience this on mobile, the first thing I see is this find tickets area. And that'll get me there. I know that on mobile, the menu also comes from the side, and the tickets is the first option. So either way, it's going to be defined, but making it just a little bit easier with just like a bigger call to action would probably be my first step. Especially since like first thing I see is the ad, the ticket, the single ticket. So there's 2 options. Just making that maybe just the yellow buy tickets. Again, take my feedback with a grain of salt, but that's just my first version. I did notice that I've been to like optimization things, but I did notice like the search bar isn't vertically centered. Um, and then it'd be cool if like maybe this whole menu item became yellow, but we can
You had it in one part. We just need to get that back.
we
I'll
can
put that as a
gloss over those things right now. Would you guys like me to go further in some more specific things about grizzlies, or do you want me to go? I have a couple different paths we can go right now. To like a process for a design process that isn't specific to what you guys are doing. It is just kind of more holistic. I did X and then I did Y and then I did Z, but it's a different design project. Or we can maybe have more Q&A and figure around your actual sites and entities.
Y'all want?
I thought maybe just talking like overall would be pretty.
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. Let's do
Overall.
some of that process, that overall, some
Yeah.
of the process you use. I know we talked about looking
Okay.
at some of the envision stuff, some of the tools you use. I think that'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. That's what I have planned out. I just want to make sure they want you to that out of it. So let me just jump. I'm going to kind of skip back into my slides. I'm going to jump back over into some actual design tools and things here in a second. So when I'm starting out any project with somebody, even if I'm really familiar with it, I want to research everything I can get my hands on. And oftentimes what that does is, what that looks like is I'm finding other apps that might be, I'm that maybe have features similar to what I'm looking for, so I can see what patterns people are already using that they're familiar with. I figure out what the business needs are. I figure out who's going to be used, why are they coming to use it, etc. I just get these questions answered. Um, who are we up against? Competitors doing, understanding what's their motivations, how are we, and then like our customers, and get into like the structure and strategy. But let me just jump into what this looks like real time. And at the same time, we'll be talking about some of the tools I use. So recently I'm doing some design work for this company. They're called Multitracks, and I'm helping them with their design work on a iOS app they have. And Chart Builder, and what Chart Builder does is allows musicians and worship service to pick up all of their music that they're performing, so that they can all be on the same page. Just really quickly, you can kind of see, it shows them what verse, what chorus, which chords to be paying attention to. It allows them to access music, cut down, and only use the vocals, etc. Uh, I'm not a I'm not a musician. I'm more a visual guy, so I'll let somebody else go into the weeds about the actual details that it provides. But what my task was is to existing iOS app and then make it a little bit more. Uh, they have some music in a catalog, and then to be able to add that music to a playlist that they're going to perform multiple songs in a row. So that playlist needs to be able to be easy to create and then also add new tracks to. So that's like the problem that I was presenting. So my first thing I did was I went and I took shots of other apps that have playlists and ability to add things that people might be familiar with. So this first one, you see, this is so this tool that I'm using at the same time is called Envision. If you're not familiar with Envision, It allows you to do things like create a mood board, which is the tool I'm using to show you the chart builder research. It allows you to link design files to create prototypes, which I'll show you in a second as well. And then it allows you to hand off your designs to developers with assets, and it allows for people to leave comments on top of designs so you can iterate and kind of have a single source of truth through the process. Envision, their blog and all of their courses they have is a very, very powerful place to come and just absorb things from a UI UX perspective. But into this is what's called a board, and so you can upload screen, organize them, and even add colors and fonts and whatnot. And you can create this kind of visual playground so people can kind of get a page of the mood or feeling of what you're headed towards. In this case, I'm using it as an example. So I went and screenshot the process of how Spotify adds things to a playlist. So then once you click on these little three dot more, then it does an overlay, and then you can say add to a playlist, and you can choose the playlist you want to add it to. In this case, I wanted to create and I called it research playlist, and then it gives me a cover added to research playlist. And I just step of the way, I'm actually doing this in my phone, and I screenshot it, and then I organize it all together so I can have conversations around it with whoever I'm talking to that is here. You can also, the beauty of this board is I can send it along with some text that explains what's done, and you can do this person or asynchronously over the internet. Then I also did the same thing for Apple Music. I just went and saw add a track to it. I'm going to save you some of the super in detailed versions of that, but I went in and made stretch each of the way, and I can share these links with y'all as well, so you can kind of dig. Vimeo is a much smaller solution where they just add videos to watch lists later. So it's the same little three dot more button that then you can add it to watch later, and then it just throws it in one bucket. You don't get to make different buckets of videos. It's just all watch later. Untapped is a beer app that lets you create a list to, maybe it's a wish list, or it's like you're going to buy this list at the grocery store or whatever, but it allows you to beers, rate them, add them to lists, save them for later. And it's very similar. You can search in beer, you can hit the little more button, you can add it to this. When the list pops up, you can add it to an existing list or create a new list, and then it gives you a little confirmation that it has been added to a list. So let's see. Then just for inventory, like those were all, they weren't competitor apps. They were just apps that have similar functionality, so they like understand what people are already experiencing and what they might expect when breaking down the chart builder app and adding this functionality in this experience.
And real quick, I want to just make
so
sure. Real quick, Ben, my bad.
Sure.
Just want to make sure that the part that he said in the vision that you can make where you can actually make a simulation of a person doing that through those screens, what he was showing when he was on the other screen, that basically is like, instead of, so they would actually be, you can actually highlight where the button is and say if a person clicks that button, go to this next screen. And then, okay, if they're on this screen, if they click this button, show this screen. If they click this button, show the other screen, so that you can actually wire up like a working prototype from just designs. Gotcha. So a person will think that, like from the naked eye, you start clicking through. Oh, I clicked add to playlist, then I'm on the screen where that.
Navigation chain.
Yeah, so you just create the navigation chain, send that out to somebody,
okay.
and it's almost like having a working prototype, just from.
I actually have that in. I have that for us to look at here in a second.
Okay,
this
cool.
This is my research phase, and yeah. gonna walk you through, like, I have some sketches and then some designs and then a finished prototype and Envision. So this is gonna be my, like, this is research phase,
Okay.
and then I'll walk you through how I go to the next steps. But yeah, what Albert said is the other side of this. This is like the very beginning use case for me, and there's other processes. This is just one I find, like, we're on the same page. We can be like, oh, we really like what Spotify did and what Apple did here, and what Untapped did in this location, and then you can kind of take that, and then you can then apply it to the next step of the thing. What I did with the actual app that I was digesting is called Chart Builder. So I just went in and screenshot every single page because I didn't have the files for this project. I was just kind of creating a feature. So I wanted to make sure I understood all of the screens I could possibly see to see what consistencies there were, what consistencies there were, and without going through all of that, show you what those screens were, and then the app itself. So it already existed, so I wanted to see where the pain points were. And what I did in that scenario was I took it to pen and paper, which I want to zoom in here. Uh, so this is just a picture I took of my sketchbook. So we're creating a set list, and on the main screen, which this will get more detailed. I think when I go back, we'll do by design. And the visuals will be more on. But we have like you can search album art on themes, and then there's like a little list of these things here for songs. Hit the little plus button. It'll take you to a set list page, and then add it to that, and then it has another screen where you have to do choosing some information, and basically this was just me making sense of that process. I'm like, when this happens, then it goes here, and then I get a confirmation. And when the confirmation ends, it takes me back to this main screen. And then if I choose this other thing, then it takes me to this process. So these are user flips. Like what is the user experience for? As I see, when I click this other thing, then it takes me here, then it takes me. Then when I click this, it takes me back up here, and then back, and then I get a message. So it's kind of the whole process, so that I can understand where they were currently at, so that I can make sense of where it needed to go, and pain points were. It's not that obvious about, because you're not using the app in your hand right now, but when I was using the app, drawing notes, it helped me digest that information without having to do much design. So taking all of the screens that they have, and then
Ben, I actually got a quick question. So basically,
yes.
so judging by the research of the screenshots you gathered from the other apps and creating playlists, it seems though, even though you're making a new experience, you still want to have a similar experience to what other people are similar with, right? And could you just elaborate a little bit on that? Like overall, even though you're creating something new, you want it to still, you want people to be familiar with what you are, the new experience.
Exactly. You don't want to create something that you have to teach people how to use it. So it helps when people are familiar with the pattern, and often some of the bigger websites, bigger apps like Dropbox, etc., have they have large teams of people that are figuring out some of this hard work for us, so we can piggyback on their shoulders a little bit and kind of borrow, use,
Be inspired by.
design patterns that exist and that aren't necessarily unique to them, but more just something like you said that people recognize and already know how to use, and we don't have to teach them. So, like, to maintain some familiarity for both the app that people are already using, and then not introducing something don't know how to use it. Because when you start having to explain, do this, then this in your app, then the user experience is broken. Um, but I can kind of elaborate more on that by showing you. So, have any of y'all used Sketch before? It's a design tool. Um, it it combines all the best things for screen design from Photoshop and Illustrator. Even if you're familiar with InDesign, it has like some things there. But you can't, anything that's not possible to build in HTML and CSS. So it's not, oftentimes with Photoshop, you can get a design going and it's not going to be able to be in. And I'm showing this aerial view here. These are all the screenshots I took of the app in its current state, and then I organized them into chunks so that I could understand sections of the app. Like on the left here, this is like the sign-up experience. And I didn't have to touch that, I just wanted to kind of understand it. Then this is kind of some features that are what the current chart and chord is, and then like what the playlist is that I'm currently using, etc. Then it gets the more about the music itself and the search experience, and then like adding things to a set list. So this was me touching. This is just me understanding kind of how things related to one another. And because I didn't have any of the design assets, I could have asked for some of them, but the thing is I needed to get it done pretty quickly. I just recreated a few of them myself. So like this is a screenshot, and then this is like actual elements. So I recreated some of them so I could just make sense of some of the things I needed to create. I should show you of what I did next, and then what that's like in comparison to some of the they already had. So you can kind of see some additions and some differences. So here is when you first land in the app, this
Are we still supposed to be seeing your sketch?
Is like, I'm sorry?
Are we still supposed to see your sketch right now, or are you showing it? Are you referring to a different screen?
Let's sketch.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I wanted to show a couple different differences in the design, and then I'm going to jump into how this translates when I push it over to Envision, and then it'll be more about the experience there. But this is my design file before I even create like a prototype.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thanks for clarifying. So on the current screens, you'll see that this section here is it's a very subtle change, but there isn't any sort of talk about a set list here, which is the thing that they're trying to create when you're using the app. You want to create a set list. So where to manage your set lists from this area. So the first thing I did was change that from songs to my library. And then I added a feature underneath the search bar called set lists. And that was one of the biggest things I added for them because they need to add songs to lists, but there's not a place for me to just browse all my set lists. So I created a place kind of in the style of the other things they have going on. Put it in the search bar, and the set lists encompass all the other things, put it above all of the other items. And then, so fast forward just a little bit, I designed some other different, well, and these are all the screens I designed. And then Sketch plays well with Envision, which we showed you guys earlier, which I used a board for inspiration, which kind of led the research process. And then I came over here eventually and started designing it. These designs were finished. There's a tool called Craft, which you kind of see this little bar with a C above it. Craft is a tool vision that allows me to sync these screens, and I can push them up to an Envision prototype. And that allows me to kind of do what Albert mentioned a second ago. I can things together and almost fake what an app would look like without any coding. So once I push these screens up to Envision, you're about to ask.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because I don't know, but we might have a hard cut at too. I want to see. I want them to see where you got to with putting all the screens together, at least before we get kicked out.
We have about 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So all screens that I designed end up in Envision. And then you can view them in an iPhone environment. So what Albert was mentioning, I'm clicking the middle of the screen, but you can kind of see where the hamburger menu is. There's like a little blue indicator. We can see like there's a preview mode and then there's a build mode. In build mode, you can make little hotspots. You can then link to the others, which you can sign up for a free version of Envision and you can tinker around with. But for the time being, I'm just going to show you this works together. So I want to open this up, which I pointed out. I created a set list earlier. So I go to set lists, and then I haven't created a set list. So I need to create a new set list.
And these are screens that you designed right here?
I'm sorry?
These are the screens you designed? Yep.
I used some, they already had, when you created a set list, they eventually let you get to creating a set list in their user. I made it much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these designs already existed. I just reached the flow and made them easier to get to. So let's say I did this and then I create the set. Boom. Takes me to the set list. Currently, the way it's set up on the set list is it shows that you created it, but there's ability to add songs. So I added this button here to add songs to the playlist or the set list.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes me back, and then at the top, it reinforces add songs to Ben's set list. Now, it doesn't have the set list tab anymore because we're not using that already in the set list that we're adding songs to. So I just want to reinforce that that's what's actually happening, keeping the user informed. So this first one, I want to click it, and then I want to, right now they only allow you to add one song at a time. There's this disconnect. I might want to add things in bulk. So I add this little checklist. And I add this one. And then in Envision, when you don't know, remember where you link things together, you can click anywhere and it'll show you the blue bar, which is the interactive piece. So I click the 3 that I want. The number at the top changes. Says add 3 songs to Ben's set list. I click done, and then those 3 songs are in my set list. It says there's 3 songs. I can view the set list, or I can add more songs. I'm going to go ahead and view the set list. And then I can kind of go back and I can do way too. I can go to, instead of through set list, which I just showed you that, I could go through a song. So click on the song. And right now they have another design feature, which is like there's a little plus sign that takes you to a screen that lets you see the chords and the different tones you can select just for the song. So this lets me see the chord list. And if I click on this, it's overlay. I can choose the key and everything here, and I can say add to set list and choose a set list. added to that. So then now I have 4 on my set list. But that, without having experienced the previous flow, this was a much larger improvement, and so they hired me on for contract work because I did this work for them. So
That's awesome. So just so run a recap. You were able to use their existing screens and kind of set them up and lay them out in Envision, and then kind of come up with a what you feel would be a better user experience and a user flow, and made those
right,
modifications all within there.
right, and then also made a few little design choices along the way, and additions and some subtractions on top of using their existing elements to make that work for them.
Real quick, because I know we're wrapping up, I want to make sure everybody, if you have some questions or something y'all want to ask, let's go ahead and get it out now, or some thoughts while we have them.
I think we should use this tool. It's very cool to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can definitely look into it. I think trying to get an account.
Is it the paid version or it's free?
I think there's a trial version, but I think that there to get everything there is a paid version. But I think because if we go with that
The
new
trial limits you.
because if we go with that new vendor, they'll be using Envision. I think that it would make a lot of sense for us to get familiar with it
For
and
sure.
be working with it for ourselves to kind of see where we're at. So I'll definitely look and try to get us set up.
Let's see. I guess overall, when starting new processes, do you have any resources that you go to for inspiration, or do you just figure that out in research?
One of my big places I go to is I like to hit up Dribble. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's with 3Bs. But Dribble's a great place. Like if I'm searching for, you can see my previous searches here talk. But if I were to say like dashboard design, like then you can also search for like if I click on one of these, you can see that it'll show me the design. You can interact with it, but also you can click on like a color. You want to sort by like colors. You can even like hex out specific ones. So you can see like maybe if you want color inspiration, you can go and see what other things exist in that specific color or what other colors go well with that exist. Also, this is great for UI and UX design. And I could send a more thorough list of reasons for inspiration. But another one that's really neat just for interactions doesn't necessarily mean that they're great UX design, but awards with W's like World Wide Web is really great, and you can go in here and you can go through like collections, and there's different categories within them, and see different designs and things that exist. This might be more helpful for presence, but then on Dribble, there's a more holistic view of design. You can do illustrations, you can do UI type searches, apps, websites. Like if I were to say, just put an iOS app, then you can start different things as well. Envision's blog, they just rebranded it called Inside Design, and they have design resources, which are like Sketch and I believe Photoshop design packs that have lots and lots of screens for you to get some. This is a wireframe pack, so we didn't really touch on wireframing, but wire is a really crucial part, the low fidelity version of your design to get the layout down, think like a blueprint of your house. But they have different things that are helpful for presenting designs, creating designs, looking at design patterns. But yeah, I usually go to Google, find some inspirations that are just kind of more visual inspiration, and then I use use a lot of other apps that exist that I know we use as well to see how similar things might be getting done. Like if you noticed in my Envision board, there wasn't really any other. There were music apps, but they weren't specific for live performance, which the app Chart Builders is for. They're just places that add something to a list. So it's good with the cross discipline. So like I wouldn't just look at other basketball websites when doing things for you guys. I would look at anywhere, like anything. Like Evernote's a good place, like a good design. Airbnb has design. You can add things to wish lists. You know, like there's so many places you can go and just think about the websites you use every day, and those are probably going to be places. If you stop and think about why you use them every day, and then see how you use them, then you'll be able to understand like some of the patterns that you're already using that should be invisible. Because as designers, if we're doing a good job, our design should get out of the way for them.
For sure.
I agree.
Already. Well, man, I appreciate it. I think.
So would it be helpful to send over my deck, some links, and
I
guess you guys could adjust this at your own leisure?
I think that'll be excellent. If you send over the deck, if you have a list of some other design links, like kind of the stuff you just said, Dribble, awards, anything like that, please feel free to send all that over.
I also have just some links to some other tools that are helpful, like user testing. Some of these things are paid services, but they also have really good education skills. So I'll send over just a bunch of different resources that I know and have used in the past.
Sounds good. Want to say again, thank you. We're getting kicked out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for sharing your time today.
Yeah,
Same
appreciate
here.
it.
Appreciate
Nice
you.
meeting you.
Likewise.
Yes, sir.